Americans love to believe they are uniquely free. When they hear about the social credit system in China, they react with fear. A government that tracks transactions, comments, and relationships, then rewards obedience and punishes dissent. It sounds like dystopian fiction, something that could never exist in the United States, except it already does. It is simply called by different names: credit scores, ESG ratings, debanking, and platform enforcement. These are not protections, they are control mechanisms. And if you look closely at how they function, you begin to see the truth. America does not need to build a social credit system. It already has one. It is privatized, fragmented, and disguised as capitalism. The outcome is identical: behave, comply, stay quiet, or lose access to money. And once you are locked out, survival becomes almost impossible in a world where everything depends on bank access, credit approval, and institutional permission. The story you are told is that a credit score measures responsibility, that it is neutral math based on paying bills. That is not what it actually measures. A credit score is a behavior tracking system. It monitors how obedient you are to the financial order. Do you borrow? Do you pay interest? Do you remain in debt long enough to be profitable without defaulting? That is what it rewards. If you never borrow, if you live debt-free, your score suffers. You become invisible. The system does not trust people who refuse to play. Think about that contradiction. A country that celebrates independence uses a system that punishes self-reliance. And control of that system rests with 3 private corporations: Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. Not voters, not lawmakers. Corporations you never agreed to work with. They collect data without permission, and if they make a mistake, the burden falls on you. You are guilty until you prove innocence. Even then, fixing errors can take months or longer while your life is frozen. Add another layer. Banks can close your account for almost any reason. They can label you risky, controversial, or unprofitable and shut you down. No hearing, no appeal, no explanation. This is not theory. It is happening now. Accounts are closed because of political views, business types, or algorithmic flags no one can see. This practice is called debanking, and it is one of the most powerful tools of control available. In a modern economy, you cannot function without a bank account. You cannot get paid, pay rent, shop online, or fully participate. Cash is not a real escape. Employers, landlords, and governments require electronic records. Once debanked, you are economically erased. You exist, but the system treats you as if you do not. This has happened before. Not in free societies, but in authoritarian ones that sought total control without open violence. Look at the Soviet Union under Stalin. Citizens could not move freely. You needed internal permission to live in certain cities. Approval depended on loyalty, usefulness, and background. Approved citizens gained access. Suspect ones were denied. Without permission, you could not work, rent, or receive services. The system was sold as efficiency and order. The result was control through paperwork. Deny the documents and you destroy a life without force. Now compare that to credit scores, bank access, and loan approvals. The labels are different. The function is the same. You are free to live anywhere you want as long as the system approves your finances. Freedom exists only within institutional consent. The tools have changed. The logic has not. And you can afford it only if the system allows you access to credit. If a mortgage is denied because your credit score drops 50 points, you cannot move to that neighborhood. If a car loan is denied, you cannot reach that job. If a bank closes your account, you cannot function inside the economy at all. The mechanisms look different, but the control is identical. And just like the old Soviet model, everything is justified with reasonable language: risk management, fraud prevention, terms of service. But beneath the surface, it is about compliance. Follow the rules and you are granted access. Step outside them, and you are quietly removed. East Germany pushed this logic even further. The Stasi, the secret police, built one of the most advanced surveillance systems in history. By the time the Berlin Wall fell in 1989, the Stasi held files on roughly 6 million people, nearly 1/3 of the population. They were not only watching criminals, they were watching everyone. Neighbors, co-workers, even family members could become informants. And the Stasi did not just observe, it acted. If you were labeled politically unreliable, you could lose your job. Your children could be blocked from university. Travel could be denied. Social isolation followed. The cruelty was that you often never knew why. You would apply for a promotion and be rejected. Apply to study abroad and be denied. No explanation. You would spend years wondering what invisible mark followed you. The Stasi understood a simple truth. You do not need to arrest everyone to control a society. You only need people to fear unseen consequences. If everyone believes they are being watched and that a small misstep could ruin their life, most people will police themselves. Now look at modern America. Your data is collected constantly. Every purchase, every website, every comment, every app, all of it is tracked, stored, and analyzed. This data builds profiles not by one central authority, but by thousands of corporations, brokers, and algorithms. Those profiles are bought, sold, and used to decide your future. Should you get that loan? Should you be hired? Should your insurance rise? Should your account be suspended? You never see the data. You never question the algorithm. You only receive the verdict: denied, flagged, removed. And just like East Germany, you often never learn the reason. Terms of service stretch for pages. Algorithms are secret. Decisions are automated. There is no person to speak to. No appeal that truly works. No way to prove innocence. You are judged by a system you cannot see, and the judgment stands. Now, consider Operation Chokepoint. Most Americans have never heard of it, yet it shows how governments and banks shape behavior without passing laws. In 2013, the administration launched Operation Chokepoint. Officially, it targeted fraud by urging banks to cut ties with industries labeled high risk. Payday lenders, gun dealers, tobacco sellers, online gambling platforms. These businesses were not banned. Instead, their access to banking was removed. The Department of Justice pressured banks, and banks complied to avoid regulatory trouble. As a result, legal businesses lost accounts, payment processing, and the ability to operate. Gun stores could not take card payments. Cannabis businesses in legal states could not open accounts. Even adult performers saw personal accounts closed simply due to profession. No crime, no trial, only pressure. The program officially ended in 2017, but the behavior never stopped. It went informal. Today, banks, payment firms, and platforms still debank or deplatform people for political reasons, business reasons, or no clear reason at all. Conservative voices have seen accounts frozen. Left-wing activists have been cut off from funding tools. Small businesses are shut down by algorithms without explanation. Crypto founders are denied banking access because institutions label it risky even though it is legal. And every time the answer is vague. This is not chaos. It is order without accountability. Risk assessment, terms of service violations, regulatory concerns. The labels change, but the pattern stays the same. If the system dislikes what you do, who you are, or what you say, it can erase your economic existence. And the most frightening part is that it is all legal. These are private companies. They are allowed to refuse service. The government is not issuing a direct order to shut you down, so it is not framed as a free speech issue. And because there is no official monopoly, you are told you can simply try another bank, another platform, another provider. But when every bank relies on the same risk models, when every platform follows the same guidelines, when the entire industry moves together, there is no real alternative. You are not redirected, you are removed. Now consider ESG, environmental, social, and governance scoring. If you have not paid attention to this, you should, because this is where the system is heading. ESG began as a rating system for corporations. It measures how closely a company aligns with approved social priorities. Are they environmentally friendly? Do they promote diversity? Do they support approved causes? Firms with high scores receive cheaper loans, better insurance terms, and access to capital. Firms with low scores are quietly excluded. And here is where it becomes personal. ESG is expanding beyond corporations. Some financial institutions are already testing ESG-style scores for individuals. Imagine a system that tracks not just how much you spend, but what you spend it on. A flight ticket lowers your score because of emissions. A donation to the wrong group lowers your score because it is socially sensitive. Choosing meat over plant-based food lowers your score because it is considered unsustainable. Just like a credit score, this rating could determine whether you qualify for a loan, whether you can buy a home, whether you can start a business. This is not speculation. Banks in Europe are already piloting programs that reward customers with lower interest rates for environmentally approved purchases. It sounds positive until you recognize the other side. If you do not comply, you pay more. And it will not stop with the environment. Once the system exists, any behavior can be measured. Who you associate with, where you browse, what you say online. The data is already collected. It simply has not been fully weaponized yet, but it will be. Notice the pattern. The Soviet propiska controlled where you could live. Stasi files controlled your career and reputation. Operation Chokepoint controlled who could do business. ESG will control who gets access to capital. Different eras, different tools, the same mechanism. Compliance is rewarded, dissent is punished. And the punishment is not prison, it is exclusion. In a modern economy, exclusion is more powerful than jail. You are not a hero. You are not a rebel. You are just broke, invisible, erased. Here is the brilliance of the American version. The government does not do it directly. Private companies do. So there is no constitutional violation, no law to challenge, no tyrant to overthrow. It is framed as market decisions, risk management, enforcement of terms. If you object, you are told to build your own bank, create your own payment network, invent your own internet. It is an absurd defense, but it works because most people never see the coordination. They do not see the revolving door between regulators and executives. They do not see the pressure applied behind closed doors. When every bank, every platform, every corporation reaches the same conclusion at the same time, it is not coincidence. It is policy. unwritten, unaccountable policy. China's social credit system is terrifying because it is open. The rules are stated clearly. Break them, lose points, lose access. America's system is more dangerous because it hides behind neutrality. Your credit score is just math. Your account closure is just risk. Your removal is just policy. There is always a reason, always plausible deniability, and because control is spread across many companies and systems, it is harder to see. But the outcome is identical: conform or be cut off. And here's the future they are building: central bank digital currencies, programmable money directed by the state. China is already testing it. Europe is moving toward it, and the Federal Reserve is studying it. And once this system is live, control becomes nearly absolute, because unlike cash, which is private and difficult to trace, digital currency can be programmed by design. It can expire, it can be limited to approved purchases, it can be disabled for specific people. Imagine a world where your money works only for allowed goods, where an account is frozen if you attend the wrong rally, where savings lose value automatically if you do not spend fast enough. This is not fiction. It is openly discussed by CBDC advocates. They argue monetary policy becomes more efficient, stimulus becomes precise, compliance becomes automatic. If that sounds exaggerated, look at Canada. In 2022, truck drivers protested health mandates. The government invoked emergency powers and froze bank accounts, not only of protesters, but also of donors. No trial, no charges, just financial shutdown. And it worked. The protests ended because when people cannot buy food, pay rent, or access their own money, resistance stops. That is the template. So what should you understand? First, the system already exists. You do not need a foreign-style social credit app. You already live with a credit score that measures financial obedience. You already depend on banks that can close accounts at will. You already face algorithms that flag you using rules you cannot see. The control framework is built. It is simply not fully switched on. Second, reduce dependence. Do not keep all funds in one bank. Do not rely only on digital payments. Keep some cash. Hold tangible assets. Create backups. The more dependent you are on a single network, the more exposed you become when that network decides you are a problem. Third, accept that this will intensify before it reverses. ESG scoring will expand. Digital state money will roll out. Definitions of acceptable behavior will narrow. Penalties for disobedience will grow. This is not driven by secret plots, but by convenience and profit for those in charge. Fourth, speak while you still can, because once the infrastructure is complete, once dissent becomes financially impossible, it will be too late. The Soviet Union collapsed, but only after 70 years of control. East Germany fell, but only after a generation lived in fear. These systems do not last forever, but they can last a lifetime, and if you believe it cannot happen, here you are. Already inside it, you just have not been excluded yet. History does not repeat, but its rhythm is clear. Internal passports once controlled movement, surveillance once shaped behavior, banking pressure once controlled commerce. The next phase controls everything through programmable money and algorithmic judgment. Different tools, same objective: compliance. The most effective part is that most people will not resist. They will not even see the system. They will only notice doors closing, opportunities disappearing, and they will blame themselves. They will try to raise their score, follow rules more carefully, stay quieter, offend no one. They will become their own guards. That is the most powerful control system ever created. Not chains imposed by force, but chains people willingly place on themselves. If this changed how you see the world, remember, history already has the answers. You only need to look closely.